Okay, hello everybody. Here we are again tonight. It's Natalie Nidham and Jean-Francois Tremblay. I am a holistic nutritionist, epigenetic coach, and human potential coach. And we are here tonight again with Jean-Francois Tremblay from CanLab in Montreal. Welcome, Jean-Francois. Great to see you again.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here again.
Yep. Well, these are always fun. These are always fun episodes. So tonight we are talking again about peptides, but we're going to talk about some new ones that you've recently released on your through your lab, and we're also going to talk about a couple that have been around for a while, and then I'm just giving a quick overview here. We're going to talk about ARA90, which everybody is so excited about. It's a peptide that seems to have some incredible potential for people with any kind of neuropathy, lots of nerve issues. We're going to talk about some of the bioregulators that you're bringing out as well. I think tomorrow you're releasing them, right?
No, tonight.
Tonight, never mind.
I just forget to do it last night. They're ready.
All right, so they're coming. They're ready. There's a brand new peptide that hardly anybody knows about that you've got on your site as well. And we're going to finish off with a quick snapshot of a talk that you did last weekend in Toronto of the future of peptides, which I think will be really interesting for everybody to listen to, including me. And then we'll announce what our next episode is going to be about, which I'm super interested about, very excited about. So let's start with first things first. The first thing on our agenda tonight was this is a peptide for a neuropeptide called FGL. Right? F is in Frank, G is in George, L is in Lauren or Linda. So the first question, and this came up in one of the groups that we're members of, is FGL the same thing as FGLL?
Yeah.
So
basically,
short answer is yes.
The L in FGL and in L in parentheses stands for loop, L-O-O-P. That's the name they gave to that form or that peptide. And sometimes it's like they just repeat it. It's FGL. That's the same L, basically. Okay. So that's the 15 amino acid.
So it's peptide. Just a nomenclature thing. It has nothing to do with the functionality of the peptide.
No, not at this point. Now, if you read the studies and not only the abstracts, you'll read about variants of, not of that peptide, but they do dimerization.
They dimerize it.
Yeah. So basically, they would take two of the FGL peptide, and instead, at the end of one, instead of putting an acetate, I don't remember what to put there, but it's one link to the other, like that.
Right.
And sometimes it's three, and they went actually four, like to have a fourth, like four branch of the peptide.
So like a three.
Yeah, like you would put in a Christmas tree. And in some cases, those dimers or multimers have, in some instances, it's more potent. And but the basic one, that's the one we offer, that's the one TaylorMade offers, is the general one that is actually, I would see, the more polyvalent and the more fit as general use, preventive kind of peptide, even therapeutic and high dosages, but so touching all the aspects.
So let's talk a bit about what FGL is good for. So it's a brain peptide. I've read that it's good for I think it's more long-term memory.
Yeah, it's a strengthened memory, long-term memory, and
And is that the one that increases connections in the brain? Like it literally?
No, that's DiHexa.
That's DiHexa. Okay, we're going to talk about that one next.
What else did you read? Well, I'm going to tell you if you're right. So,
no, I've only been doing DiHexa for 2 days. My memory is not that good yet.
Okay. Well, yeah, basically it increases neuroplasticity of the brain.
Okay.
As a general effect.
So from an optimized, so if we look at the two ways of looking at, and we'll talk about DiHexa in the same way as well. Like we have different people in our communities. We have the people who are basically looking to optimize their function or improve their longevity or just get better. They're already in a pretty good place, right? Or you have people who have concerns with function, or they're starting to feel that maybe they're starting to experience some cognitive decline, or maybe there's a history of it in their family. So they're more like, you've got the people that are looking at it from a more preventative perspective, or even people who are starting to feel like they're slipping a little bit and want to see if there's anything they can do to slow things down.
Exactly.
Right?
So if you're talking about the second category, the therapeutic use, that I will expand in the next podcast on preventive cycles and all that. But basically in those cases, you just throw as many, not as many, but a few of the best ones and higher dosages every day, and that's it. It's a therapeutic approach. So you want to
hit as many pathways as possible.
I'm not going to say heal. You want to fix something. So you want to hit as many pathways as you can, you know, as much effects as you can. Now, in a biohacking point of view, preventive, improving memory and all that, it turns out that all those kind of new, FGL is not that new, but it's kind of new for a lot of people, and me included. You know, I've read before, but never went deep. One thing I'm doing now is, I wouldn't call that a mistake, but you know, MUTC, we synthesized it a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
But I think it's Peptide Science who put it on the market first. It's a marketing thing, but you know, we could have been the first to put it on the market. But at the time, I wasn't sure about dosages, and I wanted to wait to be sure. So, but now I thought, hey, why wait? There is that new peptide we put on the market. I will talk a bit more about that. So now I'm kind of putting up things on the market and basically, and then learn about it. I'm going the other way around, but safe things. You know, I'm not going for crazy stuff, but because it is a business too, and you know, I don't want to miss opportunities as much as business-wise as being able to offer things that people want. Because you know, like that new one, I didn't find it. It's actually somebody wrote to me and pointed me out, hey, what about this peptide? Could you make it? So I've read about it. I wasn't sure, but I say, hey, well, there is at least one person who wants it, so we'll make some, and then you know, we'll go. So that FGL thing, I'm learning right now about it. But the nice part is that in the process, I'm having a virtual meeting with somebody in England, who's is a neurophysiologist, and it seems that he has worked a lot with the FGL and the dimers and all those versions and variants of it that are supposedly much more potent, last longer. That's more in the biohacking realms. So I'm gonna probably, if my feeling is right, probably I'm gonna start using with this person kind of as a consultant of what could be. And obviously he knows much more than I do about that. So, you know, few new products will come out that maybe I won't know about, but you know, I will be able, to provide research and all that. And so like those variants of LGL and a few more things.
That's amazing. So, so from a therapeutic perspective, so the conditions that FGL helps with, is that like the regular run of the mill, like the TBIs, the cognitive decline, Like
Basically, yeah.
all that whole
But at
suite
the
of,
IPS conference,
yeah.
it was the, kind of listed as one of the front. DiHexa, FGL, and there was a third.
Cerebrolysin usually is the big one.
Cerebrolysin. There you go.
Yeah.
Those are like
Cerebrolysin is the big
the
hitter.
three go-to products to go in for therapeutic use.
Okay. All right. So do you want to talk a little bit about dosages on FGL, or are you ready to do that, or not so much?
Yeah, no, that's very well known, and studies have been done. I think TaylorMade sells it in a nasal spray. The dosage is 200 milligrams nasals to be effective.
You mean micrograms?
No, milligrams.
200
So yeah, it makes it amazing.
That's crazy expensive. That's the one.
That's why.
Yeah.
So, it's not a route because you get to get the effect of 200 milligrams intranasal, it's like 2 milligrams injected.
Yeah.
It makes it much more affordable.
Okay, so for sub-Q, then you're looking at 2 milligram injections?
2 and TaylorMade basically, or like that 200 milligrams. Yeah, 1 to 1.5, 2 milligrams, depending a little on body weight. If you're a man, 2 milligrams, a woman, 1.1 to 1.5, depending if you're a big woman or a small woman.
Right. And then, is it a peptide you would use for a long time? Or, I mean, we were talking about this before, that both of us agree that like anything else, it seems, for the most part, you're going to benefit more from cycling in and out.
And on and off, yeah.
And like just to pulse it, right? The body seems to respond really well to pulses of products. But for FGL to see some kind of an effect, would you say that you need like a 4-week cycle or a 6-week cycle? Do you have any sense of that yet, or is it still
3 to 6 weeks?
3 to 6 weeks?
Yeah, my personal preference is 3 weeks.
Yeah, and higher. You tend to go higher often, shorter, right?
Higher dosage, more often, but 3 weeks. Because, and we'll talk again, but to give you a basis of my belief, there are natural cycles in life. You have daily cycles, and it was all programmed by nature, basically, day and night, one day. So 1 week is not a natural cycle.
Right.
We made that up. So I don't consider that as the months. I don't consider them as
the seasons.
But so you have 1 day, you have 3 months for the season, and you have the whole years. To me, those are the 3 natural cycles we should kind of attend to. And there is a third one, another one, which is 3 weeks it's a bit less, but to make it simple, 21 days, it's the life of a mitochondria is about the life cycle of a mitochondria is about 3 weeks.
Okay.
So and since a lot of all those peptides do work on the mitochondria itself, I think it's fair to say that a 3-week cycle is kind of a natural cycle.
Oh, so for the MOTS-C, for example, you would
3 weeks.
It would be a 3-week cycle.
MOTS-C, Humanin, that new one, SS31, and so based on that mitochondrial thing, I designed a program that has 3 weeks. I have been suggesting for years to do a Pinealon over 3 weeks course, which seems that when you have immediate effect, I've seen better results than doing 10 days. You take the same dosage, but spread it out over. So that's one cycle that is not out of nature, that comes from inside us, but that seems to be right to use too. So 1 day, 3 weeks, 3 months, a year.
Perfect. Okay.
And sorry, you'll see my background in sports, where we do periodization. So you have microcycles, then cycles inside that. But hey, it works in sports. It's based on those time frames, and it works.
For sure. Okay, but you just brought something up that I wanted to ask you about because you posted in all the groups, you just posted the preliminary results of the
Oh
study
yeah,
on, the
yeah.
Equaline study
It's
on mice.
yeah, but their study is not finished. They mention it too. They say, okay, well, let's see, because
Okay, wait.
if
Jean-Francois,
you
wait,
read,
wait, wait. Before you go on, let me just
oh,
frame this for people who are listening who didn't
okay,
even
yeah,
see the post. So the post was, it seems to imply that there's no real life extent. They're not really seeing significant life extension
yeah.
in these
But
mice.
and for
But they're
people
treating.
to understand, it's an ongoing study
Yeah,
in mice on epitalon.
exactly.
So it's not finished,
And
but
it's
at
not,
this
and it's
point,
only a pitalon, right?
it's only epitalon.
Okay.
So at this point, there is no difference, and even the person writing this, they show two curves and say we don't know which one is which actually.
Exactly. That's the other
You
thing.
know, it's a double blind thing,
Yeah,
but they have the same rate of death so far. But they say, well, let's wait till the end when mice will start to die naturally.
yeah,
So that's going to be another year or two.
yeah.
Then maybe we'll see mice in the epitalon group living longer. So
Maybe.
they say, let's wait. They do see some improvements on a few markers that have been taking external markers. And they say, well, we don't know which group it is. So again, and that's what I've said many times in conferences and in podcasts, is that the actual telomere thing of epitalon, I'm not a big believer of it for the simple reason that when those studies on telomeres by Cavinson were made, that's like 20 years ago,
Yeah.
and I really don't think they had good methods of measuring telomeres back then.
Well, and for epitalon, the telomere extension, I mean, that's all fine and good. But at the end of the day, I think that we would all agree that if we had better quality of life because our immune system was better and our bone density was better
Exactly.
and your strength is better and your, all of these different qualifiers of life quality are
Um,
better. So, I mean, yeah, so you'll live till 92, but instead of finishing with no
right.
memory and
Exactly.
sick as a dog, you actually live a fuller, better life.
So that's why me, I say, always say epitalon. If it's, forget about the telomere lengthening, with
Yeah.
everything else it does, and that study, hoping that those that have better are
Yeah,
the ones taking
yellow line is
epitalon, then just for those other benefits, it's still a very amazingly good peptide to use.
exactly,
So,
exactly. And I
you know,
believe that actually Dr. Kevinson got the best results when he combined the Epitalon with
uh,
Thymolin, right?
Timelin, or in some other studies with Violin.
Right. So with Villon or Thymolin. So one of
That's right.
those two.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that was just a little sidebar. We hadn't even planned on talking about that, but I'm
Yeah,
glad you
but it just
reminded me of it. Yeah.
came out today. Yeah.
Okay, so the next one, so we talked a little bit about FGL. We were going to talk a bit about DiHexa only because you've come out with a funky new little formula of delivery, which is different than what's on the market right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's not a new thing. Uh, like over 3 years ago, 4 years now almost. Uh, there is that compound that SR 9009.
Yeah.
Uh,
I had some.
and I think we're the only one who ever marketed it as, well, basically we dissolved it because the very low absorption, like 5-6% orally, or you don't inject that. So me, I say, well, you dissolve it in the MSO and then you get 99%. And yeah, history proved it. It works big time. So me, I say, well, let's keep the same formula. DiHexa dissolves in the MSO up to 30 milligrams per ml.
Yeah.
So, okay, it's not a good idea to use 100% DMSO, but you can bring it down to 60. So you still have like 17 milligrams per ml if you want to push the maximum. and you just apply it on the skin. And you know, it is bothering. SR 9009, to have a good effect, you would have to apply it 2 to 4 times a day,
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
But that, because it has a very short half-life.
Yeah.
But DiHexa turns out to have a very long half-life. When you get the full dosage, you can take it every second day and have the same results, basically. Meaning that it seems that when you get full dosage, 5 milligrams a day is a very good dosage, but you can easily take 10 milligrams every second day. So all the bothering of having to apply the DMSO on the clean skin and wait for it to absorb, with time it can be bothering. You do that 3-4 times a day, you know, it's like
It's going to irritate the
it's
skin.
hard for adherence. But
Yeah.
if you do that once every second day, yeah, people can cope with that. So it makes it a nice route of absorption.
So how long do you think you have to wait after you apply it before you cover
Well,
it?
it's easy. You'll know, because when you take the MSO and within a few minutes, the MSO, you know, they say it gives that bad breath, and it does, because it's a sulfur compound. Well, it's very little, but it's a sulfur compound,
Yeah.
and sulfur you excrete through the lungs.
Okay.
So same as garlic, actually, that bad breath of garlic, that's actually
Yeah.
a sulfur
It's a
compound you
sulfur thing.
excrete,
Yeah.
and you can brush your teeth as much as you want. It's
It's
still
coming
gonna be,
from,
it's coming from the lung. So people, when they use the MSO, sometimes it takes a few minutes, sometimes a few more minutes, but eventually you will have that taste in your mouth and breath. So that means it went in and it's in the bloodstream. So it's a few minutes, basically. And it's equivalent to an injection in terms of absorption, like 99%. A little bit will be destroyed because we do have enzymes on the skin. You know, that's the first line of protection, but very little.
Right. And then in terms of storing it, is it, do we store it in the fridge, or do we, because it's in a clear glass bottle, it's okay in the light?
Very stable.
Very stable.
Its structures allowed us to synthesize it as a peptide, kind of, but it's not a peptide. But it's very, 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 very stable.
Okay. So, and when will you be putting that up on your site, or is it already there?
Well, we didn't. I don't know. People are gonna jump. They always do. They're gonna say, "Ah, it's expensive," and actually, I don't know. It seems that other companies get it, outsource it at a much better price than we can make it. You know, we cannot beat those prices. So
The
we want
DiHexa?
the DiHexa, yeah.
Okay.
So we won't be able to beat those prices. I'm telling you that off the bat, it's going to be much more expensive.
But if with but other companies, like the other methods of administration.
Well, one
right
company
now,
I have in mind. Well, people in the groups like Limitless, they sell the powder basically, and they outsource this, so they get some better prices. So maybe it depends. I'll put it out if people prefer still to buy it from us. Otherwise, go to Limitless. They seem to have a very, very good source for theirs.
But he's not mixing it into a solution with DMS.
No, but I'll just you know, because it's a little formula. The thing is, if you dilute the DMSO with water, the water will kick out the DiHexa of the DMSO, so it makes the whole thing.
So what's DMSO, like an oil?
No, it's liquid like water, but you put about 40% of another solvent that doesn't kick out the MSO, and it makes it less irritable, because still people develop a rash when they use it, but that's another thing. If you use it every second day, less chances to develop the rash.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of a good candidate for that route in my eyes.
Okay. All right. Well, because definitely the formula, by doing it this way, like people who are using DiHexa with other companies right now that are using a cream are having to use like somewhere between 10 and 40 milligrams
Yeah,
dose just to get the effective
that
dose
that that
absorption, right?
6%. That's right.
Exactly.
So
So
using it with the MSO, it's expensive to begin with. So you want to get the most out of it.
yeah, you
So
don't want to waste that stuff.
getting 15-20% to me, it's no good.
Okay. So you were saying to me also, was it DiHexa that you have a client who has an aunt who is
Uh,
fairly advanced in cognitive with
oh yeah, yeah,
a
yeah, yeah. She
neurodegenerative
started to use
disease?
it,
Yeah.
and within a week, they saw improvement. They reported to me. They stopped for a few days because she developed a rash. I told her, but she forgot, and she applied it at the same
Spot.
site all the time. So she did develop the rash.
Yeah.
So I told her, wait a few days for the rash to go and start again and do rotate, one arm, the other arm, shoulder, other shoulder, upper chest, thighs, calves, belly, left, right.
Back of the knee. Back of the
Like
knees,
the
great.
whole body you can, if
Yeah.
somebody applies it for you, you have the back, you have at least 10 areas you can apply it. So, even the bums. I wouldn't go more intimate than that, but
Not with the MSO. I wouldn't think
no,
so.
because in
That
case
can't be a good idea.
you
No.
don't want to rush there.
No.
But basically, you got my point.
Yeah.
It's easy to rotate and never come back to this, or not come back to the same application sites for 2-3 weeks easily.
Okay. All right. And then the last thing we were going to talk about DiHexa, of course, is there's these caveats. And again, this speaks a lot to using these peptides in cycles. But with DiHexa, there is an issue where the pathway that it seems to use to produce all these incredible benefits in the brain is a pathway called the c-Met pathway, which is a natural pathway in our bodies that I was reading today that even like in our fetal development stage, it's what allows the rapid reproduction of cells, like of
Yeah, it's
multiple
kind of
cells.
an accelerant
It's like
of
a growth,
things.
kind of like a growth hormone on speed kind of thing.
Mhm.
But with DiHexa, because it activates or uses that pathway, for someone who has a history of or has if somebody unfortunately has active cancer in their body, this is a peptide you would stay away from in general. And then like for those people, and then for other people who don't have that type of a concern, you still probably wouldn't do much more than a 4 to 6 week cycle.
No, again, even 3 weeks. Um, Actually, the length of the cycle is determined by the length of time you're going to be off. So if you go on the 1-to-1 ratio, you can do 4 weeks on, 4 weeks off. If you do 6 weeks, it can be 6 weeks on, 6 weeks off. You just determine that ratio at the beginning, and then you pick a time of. But I wouldn't do it, as you said, more than 6 weeks at the time maximum.
No, like the longest cycle you'd probably do is 6 weeks, and I was going to ask you how long before you experience benefits or would see any kind of results, but you just finished saying that in this person. And it's probably different from someone looking for optimization versus someone who has an active disease state going on like that, and it could work both ways. But in this case, it took less than a week before they
people
saw signs.
record very fast because it's used by like a lot of students already, of course. And biohackers, and the reported results are very fast and very people like it. They do see.
I mean, I've used it for 2 days, and I will say that I've had 2 good work days.
So
that's all I can say right now. I'll keep you posted in the next couple of weeks. Okay, so the next peptide we were going to talk about a little bit is this ARA90 that everybody is crazy about these days. It's a peptide that seems to be really good for anybody with any kind of neuropathy, like nerve damage, nerve pain.
Basically, it does 2 things.
Yeah.
Carl and Ori did an amazing
A really good podcast.
podcast on it.
Yeah.
And basically, but I'll explain something after that. I'm surprised that Carl didn't see that one application of it. It kind of regenerates the peripheral nervous system.
Yeah.
And reset the nervous system. Because of that, it makes it a candidate for fibromyalgia.
Really?
Because it seems that fibromyalgia, the most common accepted cause of it, it's permanent overexcitation of the nervous system. That's why a lot of cases of fibromyalgia appear after a shock, physical or emotional. But it could be a physical shock, like my wife had it for a few years, and it was after a blow she got on her lower back, and she had fibromyalgia for 3-4 years.
Really?
And basically, by the way, she got rid of it, not by doing nothing, but to the contrary, by moving.
Huh.
And there are associations. They say no. She says no. I'm not gonna let that disease win over me.
Yeah.
And she would swim. It's too bad I didn't know her at the time. I could have. She's the kind of friend you want to have. She would wake up at night in pain, and she would get up and start to clean up the house.
Wow.
So it's good to have those people. You say, okay, when come over when that happened, and just go. Do your thing.
I mean, definitely, she's very
I'm joking, but basically that's what she did. She would go out swimming, exercising. She had a daycare center taking care of kids. You don't stop, and she didn't stop, and she had a break in that while for many months. Actually, she got pregnant, so it seems that the body during the pregnancy kind of say, okay, no, has to stop that shit, and and then it started again. But eventually but the whole point is that it's a dysregulation of the nervous system. And it seems that peptide reset the nervous system and bang, bring it to normal and very fast. So it's one of the first candidates right now as a cure, because when it's reset, that's it.
Yeah.
For fibromyalgia, I think it's in phase 2 already by some pharmaceutical.
Phase 2 clinical trials. That's amazing.
Yeah, for that. But again, that's my kinesiology degree kicking in.
Nice.
When you grow older, you lose strength, and doesn't matter what you do. I'm sure people who go a bit to the gym, they'll see that bodybuilder or people who train all their lives, and it's kind of, and more so if you use some drugs. No, you're not taking drugs anymore. You're on hormonal replacement therapies, so it's legitimate, but they're able to maintain their muscle mass at 50, at 60. So you see those guys 60 years old and they're all buffed and everything. I work with athletes that they were in powerlifting, they're still training in their 60s. They don't lose muscle mass, but their strength goes down systematically.
Yeah.
And that's easy. That's because strength is modulated by two things, by the muscle mass and by the nervous system.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what happened? You have a slow degeneration of the nervous system, and so you're weaker. Not weaker.
You can't recruit as many muscle fibers. Basically, your recruitment goes down.
No, you still recruit them. That's the funny part. I'll explain. But you're not efficient in the coordination of the recruitments. What I'm meaning, that's why you see, I would put an old person, 80 years old, that is healthy and everything, but even you put them far enough that you cannot tell their age, but just by the way they walk,
Yes.
you'll know they're old.
Yeah.
You lose that finesse of motion because it's what is called inter and intra coordination of the
Right.
muscle, which is
Right.
made by the nervous system. So take any given muscle, and let's say when you're 20, just I have no idea the actual number, but let's say there are 100 innervations to that muscle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So within the muscle, so you have that fine tuning of, okay, those fibers will be stimulated and those ones in time and in quantities.
Yeah, so it's coordination. You're talking about coordination.
Intramuscular.
Like a symphony. Yeah.
Exactly. And then between the muscles too, because it's never only one muscle that works. So, they fire at the same time. So maybe by the age of 50 or 60, you have half of those innervations. So they're that are gone. So those that are left take over.
Yeah.
So the whole muscle can be stimulated, but with much less finesse.
Mm-hmm.
So you lose that finesse of motion, and in the case of strength, you lose strength because you cannot fire all the fiber at the same time. You cannot have that same coordination between the muscles. And that's why too, for example, when you're younger, you see people, their strength increase. Actually, I would say that the strength increase you see in the first 3-4 weeks of somebody training is not from a gain in muscle mass. It's actually learning to do the exercise, coordination.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
That's why many times it's fast at the beginning. They're learning, the system is learning to coordinate those fibers. So I suspect that using that peptide could help to slow that down at least, or
even
again,
regain
it's in the pipeline.
Yeah.
I think we'll have it ready in 2-3 weeks.
Nice.
And I'll put it on the market. And on my side, I have a few key athletes I want to try with, if by using it maybe at higher dosage, because they're in their 60, but like world-class athletes, strength athletes. I'll see if we can see hopefully a short-term improvement, long-term, like fast results. So we'll see. But I see a big potential for those people in that sense.
Well, and also in the absence of a disease state, like when you're talking about an athlete,
anything,
the gains should hold. Like they're not going to hold forever, but the gains that are made, let's say you do a 4-week cycle, those gains should hold for a period of time, maybe another 3 months or 6 months, whatever, and then you have to repeat it again. But, so it's funny because when I first heard about it, I was like, yeah, okay, that's interesting. Not for me. And now I'm thinking, oh no, for me,
because
for my dad, for my husband, it's like definitely.
Only in the province of Quebec, and we're like 8 million people, you're talking about the cost of medical cost, because we're lucky in Canada. It's paid by the government. We don't pay for it.
Well, it's paid by us, by our taxes.
But it's a universal coverage. Sorry for our American
friends.
But anyway, you're looking at, I don't remember the numbers, but it's almost in the $1 billion cost of falls.
Yeah.
Old people falling, and they hurt themselves, they break a hip, then they have to be hospitalized for lengthy period of times.
Yeah.
And many times it leads to death.
Absolutely.
Falls is one of the main markers for death for older people. It's initiate the whole cascade of things that
and it initiates cognitive decline. Yeah.
So and there is a lot of research done on what they call sarcopenia.
Yeah.
But that term is less and less used exactly for those reasons. Sarco, it means tissue. It's very general. So now they talk about myopenia, the loss of muscle tissue, and dynapenia, the loss of strength. Because they noted, but we have people, they didn't lose muscle, but they're still weak. so they lose strength. So I have a strong feeling that that peptide will be useful for that.
Okay. And what's the kind of dosage that people are looking at for that one? Do you know? Or have you not looked into
Okay,
it?
that I gather from the interview with Dr. Yurt, that the
Oh,
one that
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's in
Norway.
there.
It seems that the sweet spot is at 4 milligrams per day. I
Okay.
think in their trial they went up to 8, but they didn't get more effect with 8 than 4.
Oh, I
And
remember that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
They
and
did all
one,
they did three different
yeah,
dosages.
one
Yeah.
2 milligram wasn't enough. Like the optimal, the sweet spot is like 4 milligrams.
Okay. Cool. All right. So that's coming soon to CanLab in the
Yeah,
next couple of weeks.
some other companies offer it already, but
Yeah.
so
Around Valentine's Day, it could be a perfect gift for that special someone in your life.
hopefully you could at least a pre-order could be there.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. You do your
Yeah.
pre-order. Give them a little gift certificate.
Well, that's what we're turtles, so you cannot rush a turtle.
Dude,
So.
you know what? You do a lot of stuff. So it's in the pipeline. That's all that counts. Okay, so next on our agenda, there's not much left, but there's a couple of things. You're bringing out tonight, you said, these 4 bioregulators.
Yeah, 4 new ones. I mentioned before, little by little, they were made for a few months now, but now we kind of squeezed them.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna have the one for the liver, for the Cortagen by itself, for the brain.
Yeah.
The one for
Pancreas.
the heart, Cardiogen, and Pancreagen. And Pancreagen impressed me because they did one study with rats or mice where they made them diabetic type 1. They gave them a drug, alloxan it's called, and it kills the cell in the pancreas that produce insulin. So basically, overnight, they made them diabetic, full-fledged diabetic type 1.
Yeah.
So they had that control group and the one they started to give that peptide. And you would see, well, with the one that didn't take anything, you would see the morning blood glucose like up to the roof, basically.
Yeah.
But the one taking, they did 2 courses of 2 weeks or 10 days over a month of Pancreagen. And after 1 month, the morning sugar levels of the mice using the Pancreagen was back to normal. So basically it repaired.
So it reversed the damage to the cell.
If we talk about those mice, they cured diabetes type 1. Wow. So now I never saw any human studies, and that's the first time we have it. So in my personal experience, we didn't use it yet. So I wouldn't go as far as, hey, we got the cure for diabetes type 1, but for sure there is an effect.
So nobody's done any studies on this on humans after that mouse study?
Funny, huh? Maybe Kevin's son did. I'm sure he's using it, but he didn't publish anything in humans.
Huh. Interesting.
Or not in mainstream journals.
He's keeping it secret.
Maybe he got burned a bit. If I was the guy, I would be a little pissed too. You come up with all those amazing peptides and you turn around and first thing you know, everybody's, well, mostly China, but it's flooded the market and it's like, oh yeah, Kevin son, but they buy it because they do have their own clinic at the institute. Yeah. They offer the therapies, and well, for most people, sometimes it's not fair what we're doing, but so I guess at one point probably said, I'm not publishing anymore. I keep it all for myself, or limited publishing in Russian in some obscure journal that you cannot find on the Google search.
Yeah, no, because I watched a documentary on him, and it certainly seems like he continues to.
Oh yeah. And actually, the last I've heard, The institute found 50 more new peptides, bioregulators.
Yeah.
Now they were in the stage of, because there are some peptides that have negative effects. So now they were in the stage of going each one of them to see if they had positive effect, negative effects, or no effects. And then categorizing, they have an effect on this, they do that. So that's gonna, and I know they outsource some research, some in Norway, I think to one US university, to 4 other research centers.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully some results will come in a few years out of those 50 new ones.
Okay. All right. So let's get back to the bioregulators. Next, your liver one. What's that called? Hepatogen? I'm just guessing.
No, Livagen.
Livagen.
Livagen, yes.
Okay.
Well, regenerate and improve liver functions. The one for the cortex, mainly of the brain and general brain. And
yeah, wait, go back. Improved liver function. So would it be helpful for someone who's got non-alcoholic fatty liver?
I would think so.
Okay.
But again, even with those, and it makes the therapies expensive because you need therapeutic dosages. So now you're beyond that 100 milligrams therapy twice a year. You're looking at maybe 20, 30 milligrams a day for much longer. It makes it very expensive. It does work because I had a few people who had cancer and who took, when they started to take Epitalon only, they saw amazing improvements. But they were like taking 20, 30 milligrams a day for a long period of time, like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Mm-hmm. So it's expensive. But as I mentioned before, I see a use for those in a yearly cycle as Epitalon.
Right.
Let's say you design, and what we'll talk again next podcast, you design a yearly cycle of anti-aging, healthy aging, and for some reason, maybe you did a genetic test or in your family, there is a tendency for liver problem.
Yeah.
Then I would add this one to maybe you have nothing for the liver as a preventive measure. You do it twice a year. Or pancreas, or all those peptides, for the brain. There are actually 2 for the brain, Cortagen and the other one, Pinealon. So, if you suspect because of, again, family stuff or a genetic test that you might be more prone specifically, then you introduce those specific peptides in your protocol. So it will kind of regulate those organs and keep them functioning instead of deteriorating faster.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And then the heart one, which one was that?
No, it's not Artogen, it's Cardiogen.
Cardiogen.
Is it? Yeah, Cardiogen. Yeah.
Okay. And so that's the 4th one. So do you have Pinealon already, or that's?
Pinealon, yeah, it's on the page.
You have on the site already.
Yeah, for last year we're selling it in a mix, Pinealon and Cortagen.
Yeah.
It was expensive. It sold, but it didn't go very fast. So now we're just gonna sell separately. So you can buy one and do it, because for those, in those therapy, anti-aging, Timalin, Violin, and Epitalon, it says you took them they were taken at the same time, but not meaning like at the same time, the same 20 days.
Yeah, we've talked about this.
We talked about that before. Yeah. So you can do Epitalon 20 days, then 3 months after you do the Timalin or the Violin, then again, so it's the same thing with those. So you can do Epitalon for the general effect, then a few months after, so you don't have to buy them all at once. So it's easier on the wallet. And basically,
Yeah, I got you. Okay, great. So those are available. Like they'll be available tonight or tomorrow.
Tonight I'll put them out.
As long as we don't talk for too long, because I think your dinner's waiting too.
Yeah, but I'll be working till late.
All right.
All right, that's my
You
thing.
probably have that delayed sleep onset gene.
Probably, and you know there is an explanation for that. You know, it seems that our ancestors, there were a few people staying up at night to
To make
protect
sure
the
the wolves didn't come
fire
in.
and all that.
Yeah,
So that
you're the
was
guy.
me, the protector, the night protector.
All right, fine. You're the guy we want on the camping trip.
There you
Okay,
go.
so the last two things we were going to talk about. One is this new peptide that just popped up on your
Oh,
site.
the
Oh,
KCF18,
18.
not KFC, because if you Google it, all you'll
No,
get are
KFC will make it think that you
the
mean KCF.
chicken pictures. It's KCF18.
Yeah,
And this one, basically, I just jumped in. Somebody wrote to me a few months ago asking me if we could make it. So I looked, I found that only one study that talks about it, pretty easy to make. We're going to make it.
and what it does basically is it binds the cytokine receptors, right? So
What it does, it binds what they did look at. Yeah, it binds to factor alpha, TNF alpha. I'm reading the interleukin 6, EL6. Uh, so basically, yeah, it binds to the cytokines,
cytokine
block
receptors. Yeah,
the expression of those inflammatory factors.
yeah.
So it makes it an amazingly potent anti-inflammatory peptide. That's it.
That's it. That's all you got.
Dosage, I have no clue. There is no studies yet done. Probably it will come out. Actual effect, I know it's not gonna kill you because I took a whole vial last Wednesday and I'm still alive. So I always do that. You know, I would never put something on the market before trying it first. So it's not gonna kill you, that's for sure. What I can report, I did a full vial and then I did 2 milligrams a day.
Yeah.
Is I did feel a decrease, you know, because in the last many months, you know, I didn't care much about my diet and I didn't train, so I'm inflamed. And I did feel a decrease in inflammation.
Yeah.
And an external observer did observe that I was snoring much less. So
Yeah, I wonder who that external observer was. Okay. Well, that's really interesting.
So
right?
I don't see that as a coincidence. It started that same night I took the whole vial and it continued thereafter. So that's one of those cases, again, where Mutsi, we kind of missed the boat as putting it out on the market when we didn't know much yet about it. So I said, this one, it looks interesting. Many people in the groups that I interact in have serious inflammation
Oh,
problem.
yeah, for sure.
So I thought, hey, why not? You know,
Well, and it would be interesting to see someone who, it's a little bit like the fibromyalgia. It would be interesting to see with someone with chronic inflammation, which is
exactly.
cycling, which is like in a vicious circle. If you were able to
I wouldn't see exactly. I wouldn't see that peptide as a long-term therapy.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of to kill the cycle.
Yeah, to break it.
And many times that's what people need, that actual strong lowering of inflammation, and suddenly everything else they're doing works.
Right.
Because inflammation is not, so if they take BPC to repair and work on the source of that inflammation, suddenly it's going to work much better. So I would see it at the beginning of the therapy, kind of hopefully cut off that inflammation cycle and that inflammation making the other things not work so well.
Yeah.
Or I would see it too as a practitioner like you know, you have people coming to you, not necessarily putting them on a bunch of peptides, but you know, you put them on anti-inflammatory diet and everything. So You do a short cycle of this one, bring down the inflammation very fast.
Yeah.
They see more immediate results.
And then,
And for the adherence to the program, because people are like that, if it takes a month, chances are they're going to quit before. But if in a short time they say, oh, it's working, something is happening, it's going to be much easier to adhere to the program, to keep up, and so for all those reasons, I think it's a good peptide. I don't see it as a heal anything per se.
No, it's like an intervention. Yeah.
But it's a good tool to use in a more global therapy, I think.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. That sounds good. All right, so the last thing on our agenda for tonight, and we've been going for a while, so we don't have to talk about this too much. We'll save something for another day. Is the future of peptides? You presented this weekend at
on a closed door to the conferences. I cannot give you many details. I signed actually I did sign a confidentiality thing, so that's all I can say. But I talked about the future of peptides, or the new frontiers, and well, basically I talked about the KCF18. There is that new mitochondrial peptide that was talked a bit already in some podcasts, SS31.
Yeah.
That's the third mitochondrial peptide that they kind of found what it does, because they know there is, and they know what they are. There is like 17 mitochondrial peptides, but they still don't know what they exactly do.
Okay.
But now that's the third one. They kind of say, okay, this one does that. So SS31 is a strong antioxidant, increase SIRT1 levels, and ameliorates inflammation, oxidative stress. I'm just reading, and improve type 2 diabetes. It seems that all those mitochondrial peptides has a strong effect on figures on diabetes type 2. So this one is in the pipeline, hopefully within a month. It's being synthesized as we speak. Then there is this one. KPV, it's not kind of new one, but it's kind of new. That's those 3 amino acids that ends the MSH, like melanotan peptide, but that's specific. That's another very potent inflammatory, but through other pathways. So maybe at one point, once we have, this one is being made right now, maybe we'll make a combo of KCF and KPV together, so to have like that anti-inflammatory combo thing. Wasn't spoken a lot. It's not new, but on the IPS forum, it was discussed quite a few times. It's and TaylorMade sells it, the Kispeptin 10. So this one is made already. We made like 5 grams of it, so we will release it next week. And there is that new one that nobody, I think, talked about yet. It's Mystixin 7. And that's nobody knows about this one. It's another one that nobody knows, but we're going to bring it out. It works in the glutamatergic mechanism in the brain.
Okay.
To protect against glutamate-induced toxicity.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, very much so. So this one is in the making right now. And I'm not very well educated on that glutamatergic mechanism, but a friend of mine, Christian Thibodeau, developed a whole system of neurotransmitter, basically according to dominance in neurotransmitters. You can,
whether you're dopaminergic or
you can basically design a proper diet and proper training method. The guy is in training, and he introduced that the glutamatergic pathways that has strong effect on your moods and on everything. It's supposed to be a bad thing, basically, if you have too much glutamate.
Well, it is. Isn't it sort of a little bit, I mean, there's, what's interesting about that to me is that there's some really interesting genes that regulate for that. So some people are much more prone. Some people have a much harder time converting glutamate into GABA than others.
There you go. So it has to do with that.
Yeah.
But so it affects, and it's funny because the main four ones are dopamine, acetylcholine, GABA, and serotonin.
Yeah.
So based on your dominance, and you can do its written test, it's the Braverman test.
Yeah.
It turns out to be pretty accurate. It gives you your dominance, and the dominance is set for life when you reach, when you begin at the end of being a child, and at the beginning of, it seems that the brain kind of fixes that, and you got that. So if you're dopamine dominant at 15, and you redo the test at 50, you will still be dopamine dominant. You cannot change that. But according to your dominance,
yeah,
another way, not the best, but according to what is your preferred category of drugs, you can see what is your dominant. Like dopamine dominant prefer cocaine, acetylcholine dominant prefer more mushrooms or cannabis, GABA people prefer downers, and serotonin more LSD and stuff like that. So it can be an indicator. But that can be useful if you want to detox, so you know what kind of approach, what kind of diet to follow.
Yeah.
And just talk a bit about but the test you can do every 2 to 4 weeks is the deficiency, because you can be dominant in dopamine and deficient at the same time. Meaning that you burned out and now you're deficient in it. It doesn't take away your dominance, but you can be deficient. So training wise, by looking in which one you're deficient, you schedule your recuperation protocols and supplements and diet. And by the way, that's how Ben Greenfield became so popular. Think about it. Ben Greenfield, not about those dominants, but in general, Ben Greenfield is a top trainer, marathon runner, all those crazy stuff he does. He never talked about training in his podcast. He saw a niche and it was needed. He started to talk about recuperation. He said, okay, if you do this, how do you recuperate?
Yeah.
Because nobody knew. Everybody knows how to train for a marathon.
Yeah, but
if you run too many marathons, your testosterone level will go out, you're going to burn out, and nobody knew what to do about it. He saw a niche there. The guy is bright. And that's how he started. And that led to another thing, and now he is where he is, talking about anti-aging and all those stuff, and that's great. But sometimes that's the missing link. And that simple written test that takes 10-15 minutes gives you information that a really good trainer will find anyway, but it may take him 6 months.
Well, you know what would be interesting? What would also be interesting with that test is if you looked at your genetics and looked to see what your propensities were from your genetic setup, right? Like some people,
yeah, of course, because that can up to a point. But
I mean, it's just like the genes will tell you what your setup is like. What's expressing will have to do with other factors as well.
But the genes will tell you about your physical things. That there's probably a correlation, because it's not for no reason that it's set at puberty. Because before that, as a child, you have the full expression of those genes. That,
in theory, yeah.
Part of it, well, not the full expression, but you have the expression of the building, the making of the body, and of the brain. So that all makeup will make you a dopamine dominant. And dopamine dominant, people rotate in sports where they're good at. Eventually they try this, I'm not good. It's normal. You're gonna go. So dopamine dominant are very intensive, short bouts, like sprint runners, weightlifters, not bodybuilders,
like power lifters.
Power lifters, very short bouts of intense, for example. But probably their genes earlier made that they had the right muscle fibers for that. It's all complex interactions of all those factors at the end.
It's never one thing.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Okay. Well, I think unless, is there anything else that you talked about in that part of your talk that you want to share with us, or are we going to leave it for next time?
We'll leave it for. Oh, well, I did introduce them to the GDF11, which is not a peptide, but I find it very interesting. I did order some. They're taking some time to ship it. It's coming out. But now the ETA, I think, it's tomorrow, 29th of January. So I'm supposed to have it tomorrow. Again, I decided I'm going to use it to try. I'm like that. And I will offer it. I will sell it. And it's going to be at a higher price than if you would buy it. But what we are going to sell, it's not first we're going to sell the insurance that it is the right protein.
Yeah.
Because we will test it, HPLC and everything. And that you will get the exact same dosage.
Okay.
Right dosage, because that's a problem. I mean, how do you...
It's a big issue. It's a big issue.
It's a huge issue. Are you getting 200? It's picogram. It's ridiculous small. But luckily, we are equipped to make those measurements. So if we sell a vial, that's probably they will be unidose. So 250 picograms. That's because you have 250 picograms in the vial.
Yeah.
Plus you will have the insurance that it's sterile, basically. It's the whole process of putting in it in vials, ensure the sterility of it. There is no bacteria, dead or alive. It's the highest purity, basically, that makes it proper for injections. So that's, the higher price, and that asks of our part some manipulation, work, and, so, but that's what you're going to get with our.
Okay. Well, we can talk about that one another time too. I mean, that's an interesting one. So.
Yeah, but we did talk about it. Did we talk about it on the podcast?
No, I recorded an interview with Gary.
There are controversial views, but I looked at those studies and at the points, and no, the guy, he makes sense actually. That's
okay.
No. I see it as
a positive.
Yeah, I think it's a good compound. I have a good feeling about it.
All right.
Educated guess.
Okay. Well, we will talk about it again for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Monsieur Jean-Francois Tremblay, thank you again so much for your time and for sharing all your big knowledge and for bringing us all these amazing peptides that we can trust because we know what we're getting. And you know what? Your pricing, I have to say, is nothing less than fair. So thanks.
That's the word. We're a business too, so we do make money. Normal.
Yeah.
If we were living in Cuba or China, that would be different, I guess. But
you still have to make a living, dude.
Here we go. And on a side note too, for our listeners, like that KCF 18, you know, if there is, because we cannot keep up, and that's the thing too, you know, I've worked with peptides many years, but there wasn't that many to work with. So my extended experience is now with a few of them.
Yeah.
So more and more, we're all new to those. KCF 18, now I just introduced it, and basically you read that one article and you know as much as I do. That's it. Uh, it's so new, so boy, it's and that's gonna happen more and more because there are new ones and new ones coming out. And that's what I wanted to say. If anybody listeners, they in their readings, they see a promising compound peptides, don't be shy to ask us, can you make this? And then I will investigate. You know, I wouldn't put anything or make anything without a preliminary study, but like that KCF, I thought, oh yeah, that looks good. And sure, hey, let's make it. So I think the Mitoxin 7 one, I told you, somebody wrote to me about this one too, asking. So I looked at it and I said, yeah, that's promising. Let's go for it. So
yeah, that was the that's the glutaminergic system one.
right. Let me spell it out for you if you want.
Mitoxin 7, Mitoxin.
It's MYSTIXIN 7.
Okay, MYSTIXIN 7, Mystixine 7.
That's right.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, listen, that's awesome. That's quite a good offer. I think you're going to be swamped.
Okay, but keep in mind peptides. Because, for example, people, they write to us that 5 amino compound, can you make this? No, it's not a peptide. If it's not a peptide, don't even bother to ask if we can make it. We can't. We
don't have that setup, right? Like that's not what you do.
We don't. That's not what we do. We can't. You know, it's like really different equipments, different knowledge of making, and our expertise is, our art is really with peptides. TaylorMade doesn't make their own, they outsource it, but because of the nature of their business, they're a pharmacy, they diversify more. Of course, they sell aniracetam and other stuff, and that's great. You know, that's their business. But ours is a peptide business. We gave up the SARMs business, which we had to outsource, and we make peptides. So any peptides that you see a potential benefit in making it, don't be shy to write us, ask us about it. And we'll be happy if it's possible to bring it out.
Okay. Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Jean-Francois. It's always great chatting with you, and we'll chat again soon. So actually, just before we go, if you're looking to reach Jean-Francois, you're emailing admin@canlab.net.
That's right.
Correct? Right? And your website is canlab.net.
And we have a Facebook page, informational, but lately the only information we give is about the new products coming out. But anyway, if you want to keep up with, you know, instead of asking us, you know, when are you, just it's gonna pop up on your Facebook page, you know, on CanLab new product. So
exactly. And then also I manage a Facebook group called Biohacking Superhuman Performance, Peptides, Nutrition and Genetics, and we can often find you there. You're very generous with your advice and time.
And I'll be able to in private, not publicly, if for Canadian listeners, I hope there are a few.
I hope so.
I'll be in private to provide practitioners in their area, you know, because all those doctors that attended, I'm going to get a list of which city they come from, and so if you want to work with a doctor that has no knowledge about peptides and ongoing learning, then you could approach those practitioners.
Great. Okay. Thanks a lot, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.